Hey y'all, in this video, I'm gonna share 3 ways you can get in trouble with your nonprofit. Let's get into it. Hey, it's Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running. So if you need help, you should be subscribed to this channel because I drop videos every week. And if you want to join my membership where you can get special perks and coupons, make sure you go to my channel homepage and join. All right, so I wanted to do this video because I don't know if people always understand like how serious it is to have a nonprofit and how you really don't want to mess with the IRS. You want to make sure you're taking the right steps when you decide to create a public organization. And I also just want to use this as a tool to help people because you're not going to know everything when you start a nonprofit. There are so many new things you're going to discover along the way, but at least if you know some things going into it, it will be not as bumpy. All right. So in this video, I'm going to share 3 things you need to be mindful of, you need to be careful about so you don't get hemmed up when you have a nonprofit. Okay. This by far is not all of the things. All right. This is just a sprinkle of some of the things. Some of the things just to highlight some of the high level stuff you should just be mindful of. So the first thing is not submitting your 990 form. So what is the 990 form? For some of you who are listening and you have no clue what it is your annual tax form that you submit as a nonprofit organization. It is an IRS form. And if you go to the IRS website, there's plenty of information about submitting the 990 form. I do want to lift up that there are 3 different versions of this form. The 990, as I like to say, is the OG. It is the original gangsta of forms. It is the long form that if you're making over $200,000, you got to submit it. There's also the 990 EZ, which is the streamlined version of the form. So if you're making over $50,000 but less than $200,000, then you would submit the 990 EZ. And if you're not making over $50,000, then you would submit the 990 N, which is sometimes called the 990 postcard. You can submit all of these forms electronically to the IRS, and they're due depending on when your fiscal year is. So they're due 5 months and 15 days after the end of your fiscal year, and you tell the IRS what your fiscal year is. Because some people ask me like, well, when's my fiscal year? And I'm looking back at you saying you told the IRS when your fiscal year was when you applied for 501c3 status. So everyone should know what their fiscal year is, and they're due 5 months and 15 days after the end of that period. It's really important that you submit this form. If you don't submit this form for 3 years in a row, the IRS is going to automatically take your status and you have to apply to get it back. And if you wait too long after that, it may take even longer than if it does if you do something right after they take it. The other thing is you may incur penalties, especially if you are making money as a nonprofit. The IRS may come knocking at your door saying, give us our money because now you're late. So you don't want to be late with these forms, and you don't want to just not submit them at all because there will be some action. Now, this is the thing about the IRS. It may take them a while, but eventually they're going to come around and they're going to figure it out. So that's the first thing I wanted to lift up. Make sure you're submitting your 990 form. Number 2, you need to be careful about inappropriate relationships with for-profit organizations. And I'm mainly going to talk about with this topic, your business. Because what I hear about a lot is people start a business so that their business can help fund the nonprofit, right? And so a lot of this is built on assumption though. A lot of people assume that as a nonprofit, you can't make a profit or you can't do income generating activities, and that's not true. Now, the majority of your activities need to be mission related, but mission related activities can be income generating. So you can charge for a service that relates to your mission. Hospitals do it every day. Colleges do it every day. So just want to lift that up first, that if that's you and you're starting a business because you want to fund your nonprofit, you don't necessarily have to do that. Okay. I have videos on this. If you want to get like a primer on this, check out my video on what is earned income. I go in a little bit about what you need to be mindful of with the IRS when you're earning money versus getting money that's granted or donated to you. So when you have a separate organization that is benefiting from your nonprofit, that is a potential conflict of interest, and you need to be very careful. So this could look like you know someone who has a business and your nonprofit needs the service that the business provides. So you use that company to do that. But if you're affiliated with that person, so say like that person is your brother, you're the founder, and your brother has like maybe a landscaping business, and you have a building, and you bring your brother in to do the landscaping. That's a conflict, right? Because he's benefiting by getting work. Even if it's small, it's still a conflict. As a board, you all need to think through those relationships and make sure that's the best thing for the organization. Because sometimes people use those types of relationships to maybe funnel money to people they're affiliated with, right? It can go bad really fast. So that's why you just want to manage any kind of conflicts to avoid any of that. And here's not to say that you have any malintent. Your brother does good work and you want to use him because you trust him. And so what I'm saying is that's still a conflict. And so you want to, as a board, have that discussion and handle that the right way so that there's a process, there's a written down process and a record of how you came up with that decision and why. There are a lot of caveats to this. I'm just letting you know now, I'm not a lawyer. And if you have questions about conflict of interest, you need to consult a lawyer. I'm just lifting it up to let you know it's a thing, and it's a thing you should be mindful of. But the other thing is, as a nonprofit, if you are a public charity, even if your business is not benefiting from the nonprofit and you want your business to benefit the nonprofit, that may be an issue as well. So if one organization or one person is responsible for the majority of the money that you're earning and you're a public charity nonprofit, then you risk losing your public charity status and you may be reverted to a private foundation. Now, I'm using words like public charity and private foundation, and it may sound like a foreign language to you. If it does sound like a foreign language to you, I do have other videos that break this down. I'm linking one video above that talks about general definitions. But I also want you to check out my nonprofit startup masterclass where I go into depth about public charity status and being a private foundation, because that's one of the essential things you need to know. You need to know the difference between those two. All right. So I'm stopping here with a little commercial break because I need to make sure you know that if one entity is funneling all the money to your organization and a certain amount of time has passed and you're making a certain amount of money and still only one entity is giving you the majority of your money, you risk losing your public charity status. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I have other videos and other resources that I just mentioned that go into more detail about this. That's why you want to be careful about relationships with businesses, whether you own them, especially if you own them, and even if you don't. You just need to be aware of all the things. I'm not telling you not to have relationships with businesses. That's actually something you want to do. That's actually something you should do. And I'm not telling you not to have a relationship with a business that you own or you're affiliated with. I'm just telling you all the considerations that you need to be mindful of because it brings up some things for the IRS. It can cause you to lose your status as well. So just be mindful of that. And number 3 is not knowing rules around nonprofits and fundraising. So one thing you're going to discover about having a nonprofit is every day you're probably going to learn something new that you didn't know. And one of the reasons why I created this channel is because even in my own nonprofit journeys, I've helped other people start nonprofits and launch. Even in those journeys, it was always a learning process for me. There were things that I learned from the state. There were things that I learned about getting grant money or getting government contracts and grants that I didn't know before. And only by me doing it did I learn. So the reason why I even created this channel is because I had that experience. Like, where do I go to find somebody to tell me, hey, you should know about, charitable solicitation? Because I had no clue. I'm just looking on the state website and then I realized it was the thing. So I just want you to know that the reason why I'm doing these videos is because you don't know what you don't know. But hopefully by doing your research and hearing terminology, you start to say, wait a minute, I should look more into that. So I said all that to say that there are rules that the IRS has, there are rules that your state has that you should be mindful of. And if you don't know those rules, and one day you're going to get a piece of paper in the mail and be like, oh my gosh, what is this? is this a penalty for something that I haven't done? One of the biggies is around charitable solicitation. So you may not realize is that you have to apply in most states to be able to solicit funds from individuals and organizations in that state. And there's usually paperwork you have to fill out and fees you have to pay every year. So you may not have realized that, but you need to check into that so that you don't incur any penalties in case the state catches up with you. That's a state-run process, so it's different for every state. I can't tell you in your state what the process is because it'll be different from state to state. You need to do your research yourself. But the same goes for reporting requirements for your state. Every state likely has a reporting requirement where you have to fill in information either every year or every other year to update them on your business, to talk about what you're doing. And if you don't fill out that paperwork, you may incur a penalty. So there are different rules that are different state to state that you got to be mindful of, because if you're not aware of them, then you may get hemmed up, for lack of better words. So I know you're asking me, well, Tiffany, if I don't know what I don't know, how am I supposed to figure it out? So I'm gonna give you two pieces of advice. The first thing is, you're not perfect, and there are gonna be some things that you're gonna mess up on. There are gonna be some things that you trip up on and you may have to pay the price on. But you'll know never to do it again, and that's the way you'll learn. So everybody, it happens to everybody when it comes to business. So I want you, first of all, to relax. That sometimes you may not know what's out there, and you only know when it bites back, when you have to pay a fee or when the state or the IRS contacts you. So just be okay. But the second thing, like the add-on to that, is make sure you're doing your research. Starting a nonprofit, number one, is not for the weak. Starting a nonprofit requires a lot of administrative know-how. So watch videos, read books, talk to your Secretary of State's office in your state. They're usually extremely helpful. Shoot, when you can get the IRS on the phone, they can be helpful when you can get them on the phone. So do your research. Don't be afraid to check into things. Don't be afraid to ask questions. The worst thing you can do is shut down. The worst thing you can do is say, this makes me nervous. This makes my head hurt. I don't even want to think about it, and just kind of let things go to the wayside. When you let things go to the wayside, they get worse. So just do your research. Be aggressive about learning things, but also understand that you're not going to get everything right the first time, and that's okay. So what I want you guys to do is encourage each other in the comments, because I want to make sure that people know this is a safe place and it's okay to have a bumpy ride as a nonprofit. What matters most are the people or the things that you're helping and you being able to reach your goals. All right. So if you need help with your nonprofit, if you need more assistance, make sure you visit me at www.bossonabudget.com. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.